This message is proudly sponsored by CO2 Meter.
Hello and welcome to the 1895 podcast with me, Thomas D.
And me, Rob Cockerell.
And Rob, last episode we previewed our North American CO2 Summit 2025, didn't we? We were on stage in there just as we were setting up around us, and well, a real contrast now as they're tearing the event down around us, aren't they?
Yeah, we've really bookended that, haven't we? We had
really
all of the AV testing and now, as you said, tearing down the stage that we were so happy on for the last 2 days.
Yeah, and well, we're delighted to not be on this episode alone either, aren't we? Because we've got a very special guest for this episode.
Absolutely, our proud partner for this this coverage of this North American CO2 Summit.
I guess perhaps instead of us introducing today's guest, it would be appropriate for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here as always. We're valued partners with gasworld. This is Morgan Morris, VP of Marketing from CO2 Meter.
Great. And Morgan, how have you found the event over the last couple of days?
You know, every event I always learn something more. And I've been now with CO2 Meter a little over 8 years, and so it keeps me going. I thought this event specifically, I learned just a great deal, tremendous insights, a lot more just on data, what to expect in the coming year, a lot of great education and insights from both Maura and Bruce just this past week. So always more that we can take back to the office, which is great.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. That 8 years has flown by, hasn't it? Just like this week did. Any other highlights from the event for you? Any of the speakers on stage or particular insights you took from this?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, you know, when we come to these events, it's always based around our partners. So we really enjoy and appreciate the opportunity to be here and be able to have kind of a centralized hub to meet not only with our existing partners, with new ones as well. And then the education, like we talked about, is always just so intriguing. And there's always more that we can learn, not only when it comes to just the demand, the supply issues, different CO2 sourcing alternatives. I think the one that specifically stood out was definitely Maura. She's one that I always look forward to every single year. I think it's great that you guys can get her to just give us such great data and insights on what to expect when it comes to CO2 demand, just across the application, dry ice, obviously CO2 supply. It definitely remains tight both for the US and for Europe. So being able to kind of get in front of those trends as they come and obviously see what happens next year in 2026 will be a big one.
Yeah, it's been a great couple of days of insights, haven't it? We, of course, previewed those sessions a couple of days ago now, and in the next episode, we'll have to listen back to some of those insights too.
Yeah, as Morgan was saying, we had some pretty big warnings, I think, about what's to come next year, some big potential losses in the market and how we're going to balance that and offset that. And of course, we heard all about the need for the news sources and all the purity that comes with that and the safety, which is really where you guys come in as well with detection and safety and that side of things. And we had a bit of an announcement on stage, didn't we, as well?
We did, yeah. So we were proud, obviously, to have our very own EVP Josh Pringle speak on CO2 and what to expect in trends in the industry for the food and beverage industry specifically. But he brought about a lot of new and exciting advancements. We've been proud to be able to partner with a lot of new software and technology partners. So you guys are hearing that first. With TIMS, Computers Unlimited software, which is great, all based on safety. So a lot of the gas supply network can now use TIMS, which many of them, that's their tried and true software, but be able to have both asset tracking for our inventory management based on serial number for their gas safety equipment, and be able to use their new field service management software, which is just released for gas distributors. And that really goes hand in hand with our new service offering around calibration and recertification. So they're able to get the service aspect from the software as well, and also have a scheduling tool, so be able to do it all in one. So we're really excited about that. We're continuing to innovate, and it's great to be able to also lean on some of the technology partners that are right here and all just work together to provide a better streamlined offer for the network, both end user and gas distributors. So it's been very exciting for sure.
We love a stage reveal like that as well, don't we, Tom?
We absolutely do, yeah. And what will this mean for your customers where this new release?
Yeah, absolutely. So if anything, it really will streamline their whole operation, having a software where they can not only do the asset management tracking, but also do the service, like I mentioned as well. We've also partnered with telemetry providers as well, so we have really great capabilities there and integrating with telemetry as well. So from a telemetry standpoint, from just the data and having that access right at their fingertips, being able to not only have the asset part, but have the real-time alerts and be able to see their CO2 readings right from their fingertips, I think that's definitely definitely been a trend and an ask from customers for really quite a while. And traditionally, with safety, that was kind of something that we didn't think was ever going to happen. But obviously, the industry is evolving, and now we're able to actually provide that for our customers. So it streamlines everything in terms of process and really gives them what they want, that access, right at their hand, and across multiple locations as well.
And of course, we had that announcement yesterday. So how long does it take for something like this to happen? How long have you been working on it?
Yeah, so we've been working on it for a few years now. So definitely exciting to roll it out. We'll continue to announce it here. Obviously, it was the first time that we were able to tell everyone about this announcement. So super exciting for us. And then just on the regulatory landscape too, I know Josh mentioned in his speaking segment just a lot of the regulatory updates that are going to be happening when it comes to compliance and safety. A lot of new rollouts, not just on CO2, but in liquid nitrogen, which has been a big trend within the past few years, especially with that ammonia plant in Georgia. It's brought a lot more urgency. So, obviously with the industry evolving, so do the risks. So it's important to be able to be at that forefront and be able to provide that insight to customers.
And listeners can visit gasworld.com to read about that story and, of course, that session as well.
They can indeed. We'll have much more information, all the details behind that online. It's great to have you guys with us. You stand for innovation. It's what this event is about, innovations in the DNA, and we hope we'll see you in New Orleans in 12 months' time.
Yes, absolutely. Always a pleasure with you all. You guys are great partners for us, so we're happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
And Morgan, the pleasure really is ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic to speak to Morgan there. Thanks very much for her time. And Rob, the teardown of this event still going on around us, looking like they're getting through this stage very quickly.
It is. We've got a quiet corner of the room, haven't we, at the moment? Can see the hustle and bustle going on around us. But as you said, that stage is pretty much gone now, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've had a fantastic couple of days of speakers on that stage just there. And I actually had the chance to catch up with a few of them
off stage as well.
And it was fantastic to get that extra perspective from them and to go over those big talking points and their takeaways from the event too.
Yeah, and I think in those moments, sometimes I'm busy getting demiked or, grabbing a coffee from somewhere. So who did you manage to catch in this room, essentially, on camera?
Sure. So first up, I spoke with Bruce Woerner of Woerner CO2 Consulting following his presentation on, the policy and the regulation update. And he gave me a very candid view as well, as we've come to expect from him, both on and off stage.
Yeah, and he got a bit of a tough time, I felt, unfairly, earlier today.
We might listen back to that in a future episode or two's time, but yeah, he wanted to set the record straight, didn't he?
He did. I mean, just for listeners, that'll come in a future episode, but it was a bit spiky at times. Obviously, on day one, he'd given a rundown of where he sees the market now, and really warned us that there are going to be shortages next year. It's highly likely in the US we're going to see shortages on the West Coast, possibly the East Coast and in between. But that was clearly met with some sting in the tail. Some people felt that was a negative outlook. I have to say as well, in Bruce's defense, he's just telling us how he sees it, what the numbers say, what the sources are telling him. And this was the same guy that 12 months before on our stage in Nashville said, what a great job all of the major players have done to mitigate shortages. So it's not like he's not a doom-monger or anything like that. And I felt really sorry for him, but I had to put those questions from the audience to him in our concluding panel. And I felt he handled it fantastically,
Absolutely. And in this conversation with Bruce, I did address the question of shortage and what to expect as well. So here was another chance for him to address that elephant in the room.
Yeah, let's hear from him.
My name is Bruce Woerner. I'm with Woerner CO2 Consulting now, and I've been doing this for about 2.5 years and have had the pleasure of being at 3 gasworld CO2 summits now.
Absolutely, and we're here today to discuss the North American CO2 Summit 2025. You kicked it off in the first session by discussing policy. So what changes have we seen in terms of CO2 policy and fuel credits in recent times?
Good question, Tom. The obvious, very surprising to me and most people who follow it is with the new administration de-emphasizing carbon and the environment, we did not expect to see the increase in the value of the 45Q credits from $60 to $85 a ton. And more importantly, we thought 45Z, which is a credit if you're selling into the fuel industry, would go away entirely. Instead, it was actually extended through 2029, and that will have a serious impact on the ethanol industry for the better. That ethanol plants, most of them should be able to qualify for at least a portion of that and will greatly elevate their profitability. However, it might put a little more pressure on sources of them deciding they're making so much money now on 45Z, the relative value of the CO2 price that they get may lead them to decide not to continue to supply, which is 40% of the sources obviously being ethanol.
Do you think we are seeing a period of stability within US CO2 or clean energy policy, or are we still in quite a volatile time?
If it was the CO2 industry has been a very nice, stable environment, as we've discussed for the past year or two. Policy is pretty volatile. It is not frequent that it changes with such a dramatic degree in such a short period of time. And now there's talk that perhaps 45Q credits could be endangered. I don't think that's the case, but I defer to the experts.
And to look at the CO2 market, we've been in a relatively steady period for CO2 over the last year, which has been a nice relief for all of us, I think. Do you think this is something that will continue going into next year?
I don't see a big change, Tom, but as I tried to point out at the discussion, is the industry historically, it's been a game of sourcing, and sources always go away. That all the new capacity that's been added, over the past 20 years, basically it's been to replace sources that were lost prior to having these policy issues of CCUS and 45Q and Z potentially accelerating that pace, and also the voluntary decision of especially European countries who want to reduce their emission from well sources, and with the U.S. being very dependent upon the Jackson Dome and other well sources, that could become a deciding factor as those contracts expire, many of them in the next 3 to 5 years.
And on sourcing and facilities, as these existing facilities do continue to close, how are we going to replace that over time?
As I mentioned in my presentation, Tom, I've been beating the drum for the past couple of years about RNG. So unfortunately, they're small sources. The good news, though, is there should be many of them, as my client Vanguard is expecting to do 30 or more of these plants in the next 5 years. Fuel cells, we heard from Ivor, and we've spoken with Bloom and others. Fuel cells will be built for data centers, and they offer a relatively high concentration of CO2 and should be readily attainable. And I never would have thought that I'd be standing here in 2025 saying that low purity sources can be viable, but I now have 2 clients who I am reasonably confident that they will be making some plans to capture low purity 300 ton a day plants in the next year. They'll make the commitment, I believe.
Fantastic. And looking towards next year, we're going to be returning to the US in 2026 for our event in New Orleans, as we announced today. What do you expect the talking points to be over the next 12 months and perhaps even at that event in a year's time?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm not that prescient, but I will try to handle that one. I wish you'd better prepared me for this, Tom. You're throwing me a very tough pitch at the end here. But as I mentioned in the panel discussion, I really think the favorable thing is the industrial gas companies had been so enamored with hydrogen, and it was sucking all the capital out of their budgets into hydrogen and pursuing mobile hydrogen mobility and clean hydrogen projects. There was nothing left for CO2. So the good news is, I think as decent sources develop, at least now the industry will be in a position where they have the wherewithal and the bandwidth of the resources of the personnel as well as the capital to deploy in capturing and building some of these new sources.
Fantastic. Well, no more tricky questions for me, but if you had one final message to those watching this who maybe couldn't make the event this year, what would be your message to them?
My message to them, Tom, is for me personally, this was the best of the 3 conferences I've attended, not only for the panel discussions and what I've learned, and as I talked to so many people throughout the course of these 3 days, I think most people shared my sentiment that this was an excellent use of their time, the efficiency of all the networking that you can do in a compact period of time. You can meet with vendors, producers, manufacturers of equipment, learn what's happening in the industry. And this is the highlight of my year, and that's why last year it was my wife's birthday, and I said, I'm sorry, my dear, I love you, but I must be at this conference. It's vital.
Fantastic, and we'll try to not put it on your wife's birthday in the future, but Bruce Woerner, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you, Tom.
And that was Bruce Woerner of Woerner CO2 Consulting there. Thanks, Bruce, for your time, and thanks for clearing up any controversies there, I guess.
Yeah, thanks as always. Very candid, and I do look forward to listeners hearing him in that concluding panel.
Yes, and we'll bring highlights of his initial presentation as well to viewers next week as well. But I also spoke with Maura Garvey following her presentation at the CO2 Summit, and that was another great conversation. We've uploaded a number of interviews with her to gasworld.com and to our YouTube page, and this was another fantastic insight into the CO2 market.
Yeah, and another grounded insight, and actually Maura was converging on a lot of the same talking points, a lot of the same warnings that actually that some of those traditional sources are going to contract, and there won't be enough as it stands to offset that. I think I had a figure in my notes on stage while Maura was speaking that we need something like 1,600 TPD of CO2, of new CO2 capacity through to 2029 or 2030. So that's not an insignificant amount. I think she broke it down and said, look, we're looking at probably 5 300 TPD plants, something like that. However you make up those numbers, it's a decent chunk. So she had a similar vibe to give to Bruce. So it's not just a negative outlook.
No, it's not a one-off, but let's listen to what Maura had to say to me earlier this week.
I'm Maura Garvey. I'm president of Intelligas Consulting. I'm kind of a small firm that does consulting in the industrial gases industry on all the industrial gases, but I definitely have a huge part of it is in helium and in CO2, so that's why I'm here.
And on stage, you gave a bit of a general overview of the CO2 market. So what is it that we're seeing right now?
Yeah, what we're seeing right now is demand has been flat over last year, and a lot of that is because the supply has not, it's been stable, but it's not growing. And we've actually lost supply over last year. So what we're seeing right now is, basically demand is being constrained, and it's pointing to that we need new sources.
And you touched on it there, but where does this compare to when we spoke 12 months ago in Nashville? Where does the market stand in comparison to that?
Yeah, the capacity, we've lost supply, so we're about 1,000 tons per day less than we were last year. So we're actually not looking so good. A number of plants went down. We do have a few new startups, but that's it. I mean, there wasn't enough to compensate for the loss. So when I spoke to you last year, I was still pointing, we need more sources because we know about the pipelines coming along, and we know about, the sequestration from the Class 6 wells. I mean, we knew all this was coming, and it's happening. And so it's like, I think I even started this 2-3 years ago saying, we've got to do something about it. We've got to strategically plan ahead and not get caught. And we are starting to see some of these other sources now starting to come on, but it's just not fast enough.
Sure, and I'd like to touch on those sources in a little bit, but touch on demand quickly. What we seeing that's driving the demand for CO2 at the moment?
Okay. Right now, demand is primarily being driven by dry ice, and that's really in the blast cleaning side and also in transportation. So that's where it's actually grown the fastest over the past 5 years or so. And none of the other segments are really growing like that. What we see is food is actually declining because the major food processors are trying to reduce their consumption because of all the shortages over time. So the big demand is really just dry ice for blasting.
Okay, and are there any up and coming or maybe more novel demand segments?
Well, the one big demand could be sustainable aviation fuels and e-fuels, but we don't have enough supply for that. We would need for the carbon capture utilization sequestration credit to kick in so that enough CO2 from some of these, sources, especially a lot of these ethanol plants, for example, if they could put it into that then they could support that. But right now, until you have more supply, we're not going to be there.
Sure, and I've written a figure down here in my notebook saying that capacity growth of 0.3% per year is expected, and this isn't on track with demand growth. So perhaps you could expand on that a little.
Yeah, I mean, we're basically constrained. So yeah, capacity over the past 10 years has only grown 0.3%. Demand growth has grown about 0.6%. So it just points to the struggles of plants coming on, plants going off, not enough capacity, and also just you can't grow new applications if you don't have supply.
Sure, and I said we'll get onto the new sources of CO2 supply. You spent some time on the US CO2 supply chain and those new sources of CO2. So what is it that you're seeing there?
Yeah, what we're seeing finally is that some of these new biogenic sources from food and dairy waste, those are the ones that have come on so far. The one up in Denmark, Wisconsin, the other one down in North Carolina, that's poultry. So we're starting to see these happen. I haven't seen any of the landfill waste plants, RNG coming on yet. That seems to be taking longer because you've got a lot more cleanup involved in that than you do with the food and dairy waste. So that's coming along, but there are definitely the fuel cells. They're out there. That's another good, place to get more CO2, but it's still, it's small, but with these data farms that were brought up, that could potentially be a good source. Right now, the Carbon Quest sites, they tend to be on the smaller side, so we're not seeing a lot of good growth there, but they've been doing it for a while. So a number of these sources are coming on, and then you also have even from the recovery from locomotive, that actually is getting a lot of time invested in it and money invested in it. So I'm hoping that we see that one come on, in the next couple of years, I would say it would take to get that going.
Sure, and of course you're a regular at our CO2 events here in North America. So what do you think the talking points are going to be over the coming months and perhaps over the next 12 months before we return to the US for our CO2 Summit 2026? Is it going to be continuous supply like we were seeing, or could that be disrupted?
Continuous, it's just definitely it's going to be more of getting more supply on. I think it takes too long. I mean, the time to put a plant in is several years. If you had a plant that's already ready and could be put to a location, which I believe some of the major gas companies do have, that could make a difference. It could be much faster. But I think next year, I don't see how we're going to get out of where we are right now. I mean, we're headed down towards losing supply, and I don't see a lot more coming on to compensate. So it's just more of the same next year.
So you are expecting there to be a shortage of some description next year?
Oh, yes. I think there'll be a shortage because then you basically, it's either that or the demand's going to go away. They're going to have to, shrink demand. But there will be a shortage because we are losing. If you think of California alone is 850 tons a day, that's gone. There just isn't anything on the drawing boards to make up for that. So that will cause a shortage.
Fantastic. Well, and my final question, if you had a message to those who maybe can't be here at the event, what would your message be?
Yes, pay attention to what's happening with new sources. I mean, if you are a CO2 user and just look ahead, plan ahead, strategize, look for some of these new sources. Don't be scared away by worrying they can't meet ISBT. A lot of them are doing that. Just start planning strategically for the future.
Fantastic. Well, Maura Garvey, thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
And that's Maura Garvey of Intelligas Consulting there. Thanks once again, of course, to Maura. Always great value at these events, isn't she?
Absolutely, yeah, always good value. And always good to get that double act with her and Bruce.
Fantastic. Moving on to this third clip and this third interview now, I spoke to Erica Chase of CleanCycle Carbon.
Fantastic, yeah.
An interesting conversation there and an interesting presentation to bring to the stage too. Very timely.
Yeah, and I mentioned this a few times on stage. Actually, in that concluding panel, again, Erica was one of the guests in that. And I referred to it there. I just felt Erica lit the room up with her talk and gave us a lot to think about in terms of biogas, biomethane, biogenic CO2, all of those nuances. She gave us so many headline projects that the company's working on, and of course its parent EFI is huge. So really positive talk, I felt.
And I won't say too much more, Erica, because we did discuss some of that in the interview. So let's have a listen.
Sure. Erica Chase, president of CleanCycle Carbon. We are a biogenic CO2 developer in the biogas space. We have one operational plant in North Carolina and a handful of others in our pipeline.
Fantastic. And Erica, you've been on stage here yesterday and today at our North American CO2 Summit 2025. So perhaps you could just give me a brief overview of what you discussed.
Sure, absolutely. First, discussing the opportunity that exists in the biogenic CO2 space. It really seems that the biogas CO2 projects are really the low-hanging fruit. You're starting off with a very high concentration of CO2 already, and then taking that a step further to purify it, liquefy it, and get it to beverage-grade CO2. So really just teeing up that this is the low-hanging fruit, and then talking through about what at CleanCycle Carbon we are doing in the space. So we have the first small-scale operational plant of CO2 behind RNG in the country. We are producing about 6 to 10 tons per day of biogenic beverage-grade liquid CO2. We have been delivering that CO2 since December of last year. It is co-located at a Purdue plant with a Darling Ingredients rendering facility. The project actually won an award last week at the U.S. Poultry Environmental Conference for just the really sustainability and innovative initiatives that were taken by all the team members.
Fantastic. And this project that you're discussing there, how is this going to move forward? What's next for that project?
Yep, so all of the CO2 that is currently being produced goes back to the Purdue plant. The project originated during COVID when CO2 supply was in such dire needs and on the verge of shutting down that plant. So Purdue wanted to really shore up at least some sort of sustainable source that they could rely on long term.
Okay, and why is it that you see this as perhaps the most logical new source or alternative source of CO2?
Biogas space is really the lowest hanging fruit. On top of having the highest concentrations of CO2 to start out with, it is the lowest cost to produce on a dollars per ton basis. All of these sites are existing, so you have 500 existing operating sites of RNG across North America that just need bolt-on technology. And then you have an additional almost 500 that are in planning, design, or commissioning phases that could really make a significant impact to the CO2 market.
Sure, and where do you see the opportunity in this market?
I think it's to fill a gap of need. I think it's small sources that can help fill certain regional areas of North America that are in short supply of CO2. I think what I also want to mention is the not reliance of government incentives. And I think that's really what sets the biogas CO2 apart from a lot of these other technologies, is that these projects can financially stand on their own without government incentives.
Sure, and we've talked about your current project, but what's coming up in the future for CleanCycle Carbon? Are there any new projects around the corner?
Yes, absolutely. So we have 10 in current agreement stage that we are working on to bring throughout both Canada and the U.S., a handful in California, which we know to be a great market, and then we have about 40 in our pipeline and kind of a tier 3 stage that we're currently evaluating.
Okay, great. And finally, if you had a message for those people who maybe couldn't join us here at this event, what would be your message to them?
I think my message is that there's been so much talk about these biogenic CO2 sources over the last handful of years, and something's finally being done, and it's also being done safely. Part of the presentation that I gave showed our ISBT certificate, showed a reference from Airborne Labs, and also talked to all of the safety plans that we've implemented on site. Constant on-site testing, batch testing every trailer load before it leaves our site, and just really understanding that we know the weight of the importance of safety and what that takes.
Fantastic. Well, Erica, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
And that was Erica Chase. They're fantastic to get into that RNG conversation, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just the tonic we needed, I think, after being told that we needed fresh sources, alternative sources to offset some of those traditional sources that are contracting. And there we had Erica giving us really that affirmation that biogas and CO2, it's here, let's go do it.
And it was great to hear some of the speakers later on in the day or the next day call back to that presentation from Erica too, showing that they are bit of a pioneer in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope we're going to get Erica back in 12 months' time when we're in New Orleans as well.
There we go, New Orleans, her hometown. Moving on to this next interview, and this was with Jeff Holyoak of TOMCO Systems.
Back to some rousing calls to action then.
Yes, this is a really interesting conversation off the back of his presentation, I felt. I think his presentation came at the right time in the day.
Yes, I think it did, yeah. Kept the room pepped up. I don't know what you've got in this clip. I'm looking forward to hearing that, but I felt the energy that Jeff delivered on stage, the calls to action, the urgency is an absolutely imperative message. He delivers it so well. I hope that's what you're about to bring to listeners as well.
It certainly is. So let's bring that to both you and our listeners.
Yeah, great. I really appreciate it, Tom. Jeff Holyoak, the Vice President of Strategy and Development with TOMCO Systems, an Air Water America company.
Fantastic. And you were on stage here at gasworld's North American CO2 Summit 2025. Perhaps you can just give me a brief overview of what you discussed and the key takeaways from that.
Sure, no, absolutely. So I try to kind of bridge the background data about where the market's going, kind of where the supply of CO2 is today, where we project it, seeing it going into the future, and then kind of bridge that into what are the technologies that we're going to talk about the rest of the week here, whether that's direct air capture, sequestration, capturing off of rail, capturing off of all sorts of great things like that. So I kind of trying to present that and some of the challenges that we face, but really some of the what ifs that could really cause a major disruption in the supply of CO2 across the country.
And you touched on a few of them there, but alternative sources of CO2, what are some of the most exciting ones that you see?
I think it's a little bit of all the above. We just left the last section. There was multiple source gas capture and direct air capture conversations. We had a conversation yesterday of some biogas that they're doing it right there on site and capturing it back for a food processor and sending it inside the building. So it's really in all of the above. I don't think there's any one specific leader in all of this as the technology starts to come down. And there's different aspects of it. Where are you located? What's the cost of energy? And what is the source? And we have to capture it off of all different types of sources. So it's really going to come down to the proliferation of utilizing these new technologies and not just being reliant on our existing supply more than any one technology coming out. But big advocate of direct air capture, big advocate of source gas capture, and biogas capture certainly has some big wins coming up here as well. So.
Absolutely. And how do these alternative or new sources of CO2 not become alternative anymore? How do they become the norm and more reliable?
Yeah, we need further investment. We need further commitments from the users to recognize that there could be shortages, and that's the what ifs. There could be major shortages coming online here, maybe not this year, but next year, 2027. And if we don't start adapting to these alternative sources of CO2, then we're going to be behind the eight ball in all of that and really have a struggle to get them to marketability. So what's going to happen for the adoption of it is more people trying it and accepting that there are different avenues and using it.
Absolutely. I picked up on something you said on stage yesterday was that we're going to need to go through a period of pain. So what could drive this pain?
Sure. Well, I'm not saying we are going to go through pain. I say the adoption is going to be the pain. Without pain, it's hard to transition into new technologies. So that pain could very well be a number of things. Ethanol plants going offline for sequestration, or the cost of natural gas limiting our ammonia production, or green initiatives coming back online that limit our geologic CO2 in the market, or some of the other places that we're getting our CO2. When those pains occur, more market adoption will occur.
And to pick up on one more thing you said on stage, you said what if the what if becomes the what is. An important point to make, but I guess my question to you is, what if that becomes the reality?
Then we're going to wish we adapted or adopted these other technologies sooner. Period. So it will be too late, or it'll be will be huge market disruptions if we don't have access to volumes of CO2. And so if some of those what ifs become the what is, like geological CO2 goes away, or 5 ethanol plants shut down because of sequestering and it's better for their CI score, things of that nature, then we're going to wish we adapted these things a lot sooner, and that's where it's all going to come down to.
Absolutely. And the final question, if you had a message to those who maybe couldn't be in the room here at this event today, what would be your message to them?
Don't get complacent. I think a lot of us around here today, this week, even at this event, are saying, is there really a need for this event anymore? Because we seem stable, and that's the complacency. It is stable. Unless you live in California right now and you're under force majeure. You're not that stable in CO2, but the rest of the country is. I think over the next 12 to 18 months, you'll see spot shortages, some issues here and there, but broadly speaking, we're not seeing that, and that's going to make us complacent and not adopt these new technologies and new sources of CO2 until it's too late. So my one singular message, don't get complacent. Let's continue on with the messaging of these conferences, that there are new technologies. We're going to continue to advance them. The cost curves are going to continue to see the downgrade of those, so we can be more viable against all sources of CO2.
Fantastic. Well, Jeff Holyoak, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, appreciate it.
Jeff Holyoak of TOMCO Systems. They're just what you were expecting.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think.
I said you'd get that. Yeah, he's always good for that. Great Catching Carbon podcast as well. Of course, always on point with all of the topics around carbon capture and I guess policy and technology.
And I look forward to bringing some of the clips from his presentation to our listeners, because he really got into the questions that need to be asked of the industry, I think.
Yeah, and I think he's a big fan of the summit. He said that in the welcome reception, didn't he? He gave some great words for the summit and the gathering and what it means, but he's somebody that really embraces the opportunity to use that gathering to put those calls to action out there, obviously to do business and make connections, but you feel it's all in the right interest of this CO2 market and how it moves forward.
Fantastic. This room is nearly empty around us now, but we've got just enough time to squeeze in one more clip here, I think. And this was actually an interview that I conducted ahead of the conference. So
interesting. You saved that till last. Interesting.
Saved that till last. And this is when I caught up with Thomas Rowland of Premier Cryogenics to really see what's new with the company and what he was looking forward to over the next couple of days. A great perspective and insight from those who attend our events and those who exhibit at our events, I think.
Thomas Rowland. I'm with Premier Cryogenic Services, Vice President of Sales and Marketing. Been with these guys since April of this year, so I'm relatively new to this company. I've been in the industry since 1999, so know industrial gas pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. And you say you're relatively new to Premier
Yes.
Cryogenics. So what have you noticed in that time that you spent with the company?
Just how busy these guys really are. It caught me off guard a bit. There's tons of opportunity currently in the industrial gas world, CO2 being one of our major products, major markets that we're after. We're currently seeing quite the uptick in the microbulk world, especially the 6 and 10 ton units that we're building currently, but also CO2 trailers as well. There's a good bit of that work going on right now. So.
Sure. And what do you have coming up in terms of Premier Cryogenics? What's around the corner for you guys?
One of the great things about growth is that you get to a place where you eventually need to have a new facility. We are in process currently of planning and building a new facility. We've outgrown the facility that we're in. We are essentially stacking trailers on top of trailers just to get the work done and out. So that's exciting. That's hasn't been officially announced yet, but I will tell you that that's in the planning stages as we speak. So pretty exciting times with that growth curve. Any company that's moving like this company currently is, it's exciting to help build. Mark and Joe Morreale have put together a great company, and I hope that I can help them make it even greater.
Well, that's the first exclusive we've had so far at this CO2 conference in Denver. In terms of the demand point of view, are there any trends or regional demands that you're seeing at the minute?
Absolutely. You know, as I've kind of got around, and we participate with GLADA as well. We've done some regional shows, and the Northwest has really got what seems to be a higher demand right now. We got a lot of inquiries off of that region for everything, for that matter, microbulk, trailers. It seems to be quite popular for CO2 right now. So some of the others are not going as well. I would consider them to be stable. I'm very curious to see what we hear from this show here. I know there's a considerable amount of people that are available here and to talk to, so I'm very curious to see just how, what their takes are on markets and demands and whatnot. So, yeah.
Sure, and talking of the show, we're of course here at gasworld's North American CO2 Summit 2025. What are you really looking forward to over the next, 2.5 days?
No doubt about it. There's a ton of customers here, which of course is going to create a ton of potential for us. We're looking for as many opportunities as we can get our hands on. So Troy and I will be out there talking to everybody and anybody we can. So we're looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, glad you're looking forward to it. And if you had a message to those who might be watching this who perhaps can't make the show this year, what would your message?
Give us a call. Very easy. Check us out. Our website is kind of undergoing a little bit of an overhaul as we speak. But yeah, reach out to us. We certainly have room to build more.
Well, a new facility and a new website. Thomas,
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time.
You bet. Thanks a lot. Appreciate the opportunity.
And that was Thomas Rowland of Premier Cryogenics there. Hopefully he got around to having all those conversations that he was hoping to have. I'm sure he did.
Yeah, well, I think some of his colleagues seemed pretty happy by the end of the event, so I certainly hope so.
And they normally come away happy from a gasworld conference. So.
They do, yeah. And I can see, Tom, the lights aren't quite out yet, but they're about to close this room, I think. I think we've got just enough time. We referred to this at the start of the episode with CO2 Meter when we spoke to Morgan. Shall we just bring listeners a little bit of a tease of Josh Pringle on stage and that announcement they made?
Yes, I mean, Morgan made that announcement on this podcast just as Josh did on stage. So let's listen to just a few moments of that.
Last, I'm going to wrap up here. Rob and team always ask me, what's the latest and greatest, what's new? Here's something that's latest and greatest for us. We have partnered with the folks at BevCheck. You can now see the CO2 monitor or O2 monitor's data in real time on your phone. Some people love this, some people don't love this. This is probably the number one request we've gotten over the last 3 to 5 years is, can I see it on my phone? Can my manager see it at home on Friday night when we have an incident? And the folks at BevCheck have a technology platform that we were very able and easily to integrate with. We are excited about this. You guys are the first people hearing that we can do this. And they've got a couple hundred sites already up and running. They were quick to do it. We were really impressed. So yeah, now anybody wants to see the data real time, you can see the data real time. Tablet, phone, desktop, multiple folks across a platform or organization. And then I'm going to specifically mention these folks. So over the last couple of years, we've been proud to partner. The folks at Autodata are here, the folks at Pulse are here, the folks at ANOVA are here. We're very proud to partner with the telemetry providers. If someone wants to see their monitoring data in their telemetry platform, it's available and built in, ready to do it. Talked about BevCheck. I know David is here from TIMS. If you haven't had a chance to talk to him out in the lobby, please do so. The TIMS platform is a software platform that is ubiquitous across the independent gas distributor world here in the US. We have worked with David and team over the last few months to build very easily build in the CO2 monitoring data from an asset tracking perspective, as well as certification and annual inspection perspective as well. That means that when a tech goes in the field and installs a device, they put the serial number in, they instantly can help you track that data as an asset management tool. And then in the background, when the tech goes to do that annual certification, they hit submit, the customer automatically gets that information and bill. So huge opportunities for us with some of our technology partners. It's tough to be innovative when you're a device manufacturer, but we think we've found some ways with these partners to be able to do it.
Josh Pringle of CO2 Meter there, and we'll bring more of that presentation to listeners next week when we go into our full CO2 Summit review, won't we?
Yeah, that one will be back at base, back at the ranch, back in the UK.
Yeah, it's a long flight to get.
Yeah, a
then.
long journey to go through, but I think we can do it, Tom. And I look forward to revisiting some of those key talking points.
And I expect that to be a real bumper episode with the amount of content that we've got out of this event over the last couple of days.
Yeah, I expect it. Well, I think we've got I think we said this before, didn't we? We've got a couple of episodes still to go in this one.
I think so, because earlier today we had that final panel session as well, and so many great talking points from that. As we mentioned, that bit of spikiness, I guess, with Bruce, so we can bring some of that to our listeners in a separate episode, I think.
Yeah, we'll bring all the best of it. I mean, the lights are going out here now, but there's still a spotlight on CO2, so still plenty to come.
Love it. Great segue there. In the meantime, do please like, follow, and share the 1895 podcast, and we'll be back again next week.